From families that just disappeared to stories of hauntings and more, here are 9 creepy abandoned mansions. Number 9. The Czech Mansion. In the Czech Republic, there's an abandoned mansion that many aren't sure what to make of, mainly because there was a family that most definitely lived there at one point in time. Then, over the course of a single night, they vanished. Not only did they vanish, they took none of the possessions that were in the house with them. They just left it all as it was, which is not what you'd expect from people of this class. The house itself also has quite a history, including being owned by several families, multiple governments who used it for their own purposes, including the Soviet Union, before eventually going back to the family who owned it pre-World War II. Yet, if you go to it now, it just stands there as a living mausoleum. There are pictures all over the walls, there are traces of life that used to be there, and there's even a car that clearly hasn't been driven for many years. As for when it was abandoned, that's a bit tricky, because there are traces of people from around 2010 to 2012. So there was someone living here in the modern times, but whoever it was left everything behind. Due to the house not being lived in, the signs of decay are starting to show, but the house itself feels almost pristine, and that it could easily be lived in at any moment, or that the owners will return at any second in order to reclaim their lives. What happened to this family? What could have caused them to leave everything behind that filled this mansion? The mystery continues. Number 8. Charming Forge Mansion. What is known as the Charming Forge Mansion was built all the way back in 1749 and was then restored in full in 1994 to a mansion that has 7 bedrooms, 7 fireplaces, a carriage barn, and separate guest house made of stone. What's more, this house sits on 48 acres of land, allowing anyone who would buy it to have a large living space with privacy all around. Which begs the question, why is this mansion up for sale, and why is no one daring to buy it? That would be because the mansion is believed to be haunted. Haunted by whom, you ask? Henry William Stiegel, the mansion's first owner. Many who have gone to the mansion have stated that they have seen him and other people roaming the halls, sometimes with their heads cut off, which would be enough to send many people packing. There's even a tale that in the top bedroom of the mansion there's a girl crying, but for what reason is unknown. The mansion is currently selling for $777,000. But it's agreed that it should be worth much more than that. Yet, the haunting of this mansion has left it abandoned and without an owner. Number 7. Winchester Mansion. This is a story about a man named William Winchester, who was the creator of one of the most legendary rifles in the history of the world, the Winchester Rifle. This was the gun that helped tame the Wild West and helped bring a new age of rifle that could be felt in impact for generations to come. Williams had a wife, Sarah, who felt very differently about the guns that her husband was selling. You see, she was told by a fortune teller that the guns that her husband was making and getting a fortune from were going to curse her, mainly by having her haunted by the spirits of people that were being killed by them. Afraid for her life, Sarah decided to build an overly elaborate mansion in San Jose, California, one that would have thousands of windows, doors, and hundreds of rooms, all with the purpose of keeping her away from the spirits that were haunting her. This house was built for many years, and Sarah actually died soon after it was completed. Technically, the house is owned by someone, but not to live in. Rather, it's used as a tourist destination so that people can see firsthand how far Sarah went to keep her location a secret from the ghosts. Some actually feel it's still haunted by those spirits, so it's not likely that a person would live in the place anymore between the potential haunting and the insane layout of the home. And now for number 6. But first, remember to hit that subscribe button and let me know if you'd spend the night in a haunted mansion in the comments below. Number 6. Lennox Castle. A castle is a type of mansion in its own right, and there's a very big reason why this castle in Scotland is abandoned. The castle itself was made in 1812 by John Lennox, who was said to be a descendant of Clan Kincaid, a very special family in Scotland history. It at one time housed a prominent family, but then was converted into an insane asylum and then turned into a hospital proper. However, the castle did not have the best abilities in terms of keeping their patients docile, to the extent that they were fighting constantly, and as the story goes, one night they literally caused a riot, which sent the staff fleeing but locking the patients within the castle itself in order to keep them from getting out. The hospital was shut down in the 1980s, where it has remained abandoned ever since. There have been talks of the building being converted into living areas, but one has to wonder if that's wise given all that has gone on in that place. Number 5. The abandoned mansion of Athanasios Takmensis. In England, within the area of King's Langley, is an abandoned mansion that was once owned by a Greek tycoon known as Athanasios Takmensis. The man's mansion was very large and prominent in the area, and he was indeed known to live large in his mansion. And yet, quite randomly, he and his family who lived there abandoned the mansion without a word and haven't come back since. When an urban explorer went into the house, the various items of the mansion were still intact, and in fact, it was likely they'd been set up by someone days before, signaling that the rush from the house was one of necessity and maybe even fear. Some neighbors even think that the family left in the middle of the night, thus why no one is sure what happened. One neighbor told Mail Online, "I ride my horse down the road every day, and all of a sudden, I realized around 3 years ago that the people there had just disappeared. I just thought at first they had gone away somewhere and would then come back, but nobody did. It's most strange. At first, the gates were just shut, and then a padlock and chain appeared on them. You could just see the grass getting longer and longer and growing around the cars. Nobody around here has a clue what happened to them and why they just upped and left. It is a real mystery," another neighbor told Mail Online. The mystery into the disappearance lingers on. Number 4. S.K. Pierce Mansion. The S.K. Pierce Mansion is a place that on the surface seems like a good mansion to live in. However, as many potential buyers and owners have found out, the place may be haunted and thus has remained unsold. The house itself can be found in New England, Massachusetts, and its price has varied over its years on the market. On the inside, it's got 10+ rooms, 3 bathrooms and more, meaning that the low prices the mansion has been offered for is honestly a pittance compared to what it's worth. But because it's considered one of the most haunted places in New England, it's not listed as a desirable place to live. Why is it haunted? It may have to do with the fact that since 1875, when the mansion was built, 7 people were killed in the house, including a few confirmed murders. But just as important is that the apparent spirits of these people are said to roam the halls and rooms of this mansion, even speaking to one another and creating whispers that caused some of the owners to leave the house in terror. As this grew over time, people are said to have seen fallen servants, children, and more roaming through the place even though none live there anymore. This place is so haunted that it's been featured in many paranormal TV series. So thus, the house remains abandoned, and barring someone having the stomach to go and live in such a place, it's unlikely that it's going to change anytime soon. Number 3. Liu Family Mansion. Located in Taiwan in the countryside, the Liu Family Mansion is a home that has been abandoned for almost 7 decades. The mystery of the place, though, is tied into why the family fled at all. There's no confirmed reason for why they were said to leave their stunning mansion and not come back. But naturally, there have been stories. There are tales of an affair that led to a maid taking her life in disgrace, and thus the family left to try and move on. Others have noted that since its abandonment, some groups have taken refuge in the house, and yet they died under mysterious circumstances, which has now led many to believe that the mansion is indeed haunted. There are counters to this story though, including the belief that the family left the mansion because of a business venture, though that would raise the question of why they didn't try to sell the mansion and instead just left it to people and the elements. Since there are no definitive answers, the mystery continues and the mansion still stands. Number 2. The LALAURIE Mansion. New Orleans is full of haunted places, one of which is the LALAURIE Mansion, which is an abandoned place that many go and visit because of its history. According to history, Madame Marie Delphine LaLaurie was a socialite who lived in New Orleans in the French Quarter in the 19th century. She loved throwing lavish parties, all of which were held in her Creole mansion. What many didn't know, though, was just 2 floors above where the parties were being thrown, Madame LaLaurie had slaves in the attic, and they were basically tortured there. Police only found out about this via a small fire in the house, and Madame LaLaurie was run out of town. The mansion itself was eventually privately bought, and not long after the truth of it was revealed, it was said by many that the screams of the people who died in the house could be heard. The mansion is no longer able to be toured from the inside, but is talked about during other tours of New Orleans. Number 1. Via de VECCHI. This is the tale of a haunted mansion called Via de VECCHI. The Red House, as it's known, was a triple-decker mansion that was built in about the 1850s, and it was built by a count of all things, Felix de VECCHI. It wasn't just a mansion, though. It was a summer home. The villa had plumbing, heat, a fountain on the grounds, and many more things that made it one of the most luxurious homes to live in at the time. The good times didn't last, though. One day, the Count came home to find his daughter missing and his wife killed. He was never able to find the daughter, and thus a year later, he took his own life. After being taken over by his brother and other family, it was eventually abandoned after World War II, where the legends of the ghost house started to emerge, including people going there and saying the grand piano in the house was still being played by the specter of the Count. Just as creepily, in the 2000s, an avalanche in the area happened and wiped out just about every house that stood, except for the ghost house. Thanks for watching. What did you think of the stories behind these abandoned mansions? Which one would you dare to live in or buy? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.